Good evening and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. Tonight we are soliciting questions and comments from you via Twitter at Mason Roundtable and or with the hashtag TMR episode 42 or on the Facebook event page. As usual, my name is John Ruark, and I am a member of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. And I'll hand it off to Juan.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Juan Sepulveda, and I am a member of Yola Lodge number 207 in Orlando, Florida, and the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast.
Excellent. Nick Johnson.
Hey, I'm Nick Johnson. I'm a past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in big-time Farmington, Minnesota.
All right. Robert.
Worshipful Master of Waukegan Lodge number 78 in Waukegan, Illinois, and the host of the Masonic podcast.
Excellent. And last but not least, Jason.
Thanks, John. Jason Richards, Senior Deacon for about 2 more weeks of Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia.
Good old. Excellent. You remembered this time. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Starting
It
off.
helps when I get the verbal cues from Nick.
Yeah. Big time. Good old.
Big time, good old.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty. Masonic news this week begins with a note from one of our previous guest hosts, Jason Mitchell, for the Masonic Temple break-in and theft. We've talked earlier this year about all sorts of fires being set. Yet again,
Dudes getting tackled. That's
there's
always fun.
Yeah, there's more information coming out from the Brothers of the Lodge in Cedar City, Utah, about yet another vandalism case in a lodge building.
They stole a can of corn and half a gallon of fruit punch.
I think the best line there is at the bottom where there's a little blood on the wall after the broken window, so a little bit of karma was active during the break-in.
It's because the Masons control everything, and they made that happen.
Yeah. You guys have lodges being broken into around your area? Any vandalism, any theft?
Actually,
That's good.
at Henry Lodge, a month or 2 ago, someone broke into the shed behind the lodge and stole gasoline.
Oh, gasoline's expensive. I mean.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when it was a little while ago, Brother Rob Walk, when he was just an EA, 2 weekends in a row, I think, the side of his lodge was vandalized with some inappropriate things, but you know they got together and cleaned it up. But it hasn't happened.
Right. So.
Just don't
Well, I
understand.
think the biggest, well, and the thing is, the biggest takeaway is always the same: is that you should always have a security system with your building.
Well said.
Whatever we are, we're a target now. So, we just need to always be aware of that.
Mm-hmm. Also, in Masonic news, we have where, for those of you on Reddit, which our famous mod is here today, they finally decided to get together and do an r/Freemasonry lapel pin. So you too, for the low price of $12, can have your very own Freemasonry SNU logo lapel pin. And Nick,
Or
are
you
the
could
first
just-
in line?
Or you could just order a TMR pin from us for $10.
What a deal! And you
Well,
get
you know-
Closing.
And
Well,
you get a bookmark or 2.
Ooh. The thing is, actually, it's kind of funny. There was a guy on there before from California who was trying to get a pin together, and he just couldn't get it done for whatever reason. Reddit is very, very particular about how people are going to use their image of SNU, and so here, let me bring it up for everybody so they can actually take a look at what this pin looks like. But it's one of those that this guy finally found a place where you can actually get pins made, and so this is what the pin is going to look like. And so it's kind of, I guess the campaign is to pay for, I guess it's going to the Seattle Children's Hospital. It's not coming from any of the mods or anybody else, so it's just a user that thought that this was a good idea. So, he's got to get 200 pins for them to actually ship. And so if that doesn't happen, it's, everybody gets their money back, or I don't know how that works, but so it's kind of interesting to see how the community has grown.
Nick, I'm surprised you haven't ordered 200 by now.
Well, let's see, 15 times 200. Yeah, I think I can do that.
Well, it's Nick, big time.
Yeah. Nick put the big and big time.
Nice.
And we'll leave it at that. Any other Masonic news that we want to cover? Alrighty. I guess the other thing just for this week is, this is Thanksgiving week, so we'll lead off and probably end the show with be thankful for what you got and appreciate everything you have. Alrighty. Topic for this week is Masonic youth groups. What are they? How do they work? Why are they there? And so I thought...
Should they continue being there?
Should they be there? One thing we should probably start with is just by name, what are some of these? Because some have heard of some have heard of none, and there's been various ones. Various lodges have adopted them, so not all lodges have Masonic youth groups. And we'll ask everybody here what lodge they're part of and if they support, a youth group. But we were kind of going over some of them in the green room, and the earliest that we could find was the Order of the Demolay.
Who?
Who?
I'm kidding.
Who's this guy named Demolay? That was founded in 1919. And then there is the International Order of the Job's Daughters. Someone's going to have to correct me on that.
That's the original name. Now it's just Job's Daughters International.
Okay. That was founded in 1920. And also, shortly after that, was the Rainbow Girls. I don't know if that's their full title as well.
I thought there was
Rainbow for Girls.
Sure. In 1922. And then a couple of other ones those are kind of the most popular ones, at least in our area. And I know that we had a couple good comments on the Facebook event page ahead of the time before the show, where it was also mentioned the Asociación de Jóvenes Esperanza de la Fraternidad in 1936, or AJEF for short.
Nailed it.
Nice.
Boom.
I get my card. And that was in 1936, primarily based in U.S., Mexico, and Latin America, for the youth of Latin Masonic youth. And then we also had a good recommendation from our friend William Morgan III of the Knights of Pythagoras, which was a youth group formed for Prince Hall Masonry in 1938. So the next question is, there's plenty of other ones out there. I know that there's some that we're missing. We're just kind of giving a broad overview. But the first question is, does your lodge host any youth organizations? And we'll just go in order. Let's start with Robert.
We used to hold a Assembly of Rainbow at Waukegan Temple, and we also had Lakes chapter of Demolay. But as we will talk about later, some issues came up with the Lakes chapter Demolay, and they folded, and they came back. But again, we'll talk about that later.
Okay. Nick, how about you?
Well, we just restarted our Bethel that had been out of commission for, I think, 10 years or something like that, Bethel 88. And we used to have a Demolay chapter that was also there, the H.W. Hosmer chapter.
Bethels are Job's Daughters. Just so you know.
Yes, yeah. So Bethel is what they call themselves, and I guess it's Honored Queen is the head of their organization, and then Demolay, I'm not real sure what they're called. Master Consular or something, I don't know.
Juan, how about you?
at Adiola, we have a few of the past masters that are closely associated with the Bahia de Malay, and I know that they meet at Adiola certain times. I don't know if that's their home right now, but they are very active. Anytime that there's any fundraiser going on at Adiola, the Bahia chapter of de Malay is close by, helping and also raising funds.
Okay, thanks. And Jason.
Yes. Acacia doesn't actually host any other organizations outside of Acacia Lodge as far as Masonic organizations are concerned. However, we're very close to a Bethel of Job's Daughters that meets down in Occoquan Lodge. Actually, several of the kids of Acacia Past Masters are members of that Bethel, and one of our current district instructor of work is the Bethel Guardian for that Bethel. So we usually have the Jobies come in 2 to 3 times a year to do stuff with Acacia Brethren.
Cool. And then my mother lodge, Herndon Lodge, actually does have a Bethel and a de Malay, and I believe they used to have a rainbow group, but the Patriot Lodge does not. We kind of joked around. We even told the Grand Master last year, whose theme was Masonry's Youth, Masonry's Future. We told him, well, we are Masonry's youth because we are getting guys as young as the legal age to come in right off of the university. So we really have no need for a youth group at this time because we are actively targeting the Masonic youth of Freemasonry.
I don't think he appreciated that, but that's okay.
He smiled and shook my hand and probably talked about me as he walked away.
He's PGM now.
Yeah, right. So I guess one thing I'm going to assume here, and I'm going to just kind of lay it out there, have any of you been in one of these groups, like de Malay? Or Job's Daughters? But
I took the certified adult volunteer training. I've never done anything with it, but I did do that for the Jobies, so...
But never,
I don't know what that
really, I'm
means.
asking, as a youth. Nobody. Wow. Me either. So this is kind of interesting. As we were getting into the show, we're really thinking, like, we really don't have that much experience with it. I tried to feel out some friends to see, did you join? What did you like about it? What didn't you like? And a few have joined for various reasons, but none that actively led into Masonry. So that was kind of my big leading question for them was that did joining something like de Malay actively contribute to you becoming a Mason? And the few people that I solicited said, no, not really. So, they were there to meet girls, and because they had those rainbow girls meet up with the de Malay at dances and that kind of thing.
We had Brother Brian Shimeon and I used to talk all the time, and of course he was de Malay. If you guys don't know him, he writes for the Midnight Freemasons also. He was huge into de Malay. He was master counselor of his chapter, of Lake's chapter, in fact, right here. And that's, but from a young age, he was also going to his dad's lodge, as a little guy running around, and I'll be knocking his head into the altar and everything else. But then he joined, of course, the fraternity. But I've met so many guys that were in de Malay also. They go, "Oh wow, you're a Mason." I go, "Yeah." I go, "Well, I was in de Malay." And I go, "Well, that's cool. Did you ever join the fraternity?" And a lot of them, it's surprising. They just say no.
No, I never got really into it.
Yeah,
I've met so many de Malays who are like, "Oh, really? You're a Mason? That's awesome. I was de Malay," and I'm like, "Okay." No, it's cool.
Yeah.
But what did you ever think about? No, not really.
That is the absolute thing that I hear all the time, Jason.
Yeah, same here.
Interesting. And
my wife and I. 1 second, John. My wife and I were at the Colosseum in Rome, and I had my Acacia sweatshirt on, and some guy from Brazil comes up and says, "Oh, are you a Mason?" "Oh, I was de Malay." So even like across the world, like it was still the same song and dance. Sorry, John.
I lost my
Frozen.
thought now.
Oh well, and it's kind of funny on all of our petition forms we actually ask, were you D Malay? And I can honestly tell you that question, when it's a yes answer to that, it's a very rare instance. It's almost like, whoa, you were? Really?
And then they automatically get blackballed, right?
Yeah, right.
Secret ballot.
All right, so that's interesting that really none of us have been in youth groups before joining. The next question I have for the group is, if these organizations exist and they've been around for a very long time, what really is the benefit for the youth of having this youth group? And we'll talk about the cons later, the pros and cons, but what do these groups have to offer for the youth?
You know, I think I love the structure of them, and I think that's what maybe kids get out of it is the structure and the things that they get told, or that we're told that they learn, leadership skills and public speaking and all of these things. But something that I think that I've noticed from some guys is that it provides some additional mentorship that a kid might not otherwise get at home. But also, if he does get that kind of mentorship at home, he might get used to it. And it would be interesting to see that when he's a part of another group, the degree of encouragement and mentorship that he gets at home is also mirrored there in his youth group. So it would almost validate, what his parents are trying to do and instill qualities and get them kind of on the same wavelength, so that they see it is a social norm. Like mom and dad aren't just saying this stuff. Like this is, I'm getting the same message both places.
Yeah, support and consistency. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, is the original founding of D Malay, at least Frank, is it Ladd or Land?
Yeah, Franklin. Yeah.
Yeah, and he saw that there was a whole, there were all these youth that were just almost directionless, and they were in dangerous situations. It was 1920. It wasn't a great time to be a kid, and so he was there he saw that there was this need to help kids out, especially young men who were getting in trouble with the law, and that's essentially what D Malay was founded, was to give this structured format to them to live more fulfilling lives.
I also see the benefit of the initiatic experience. When I joined Masonry was everything about it, about the whole experience, was so foreign to me. I had nothing to compare it with, and I think of someone who, in their youth, is part of an organization like this that has rituals and initiation and all that kind of stuff, might be more at ease during the joining Masonry, or at least will understand or have something to compare with.
Right.
Well, looking at the benefits of Masonic youth groups in particular, when I was thinking about this episode, I was having trouble because these youth groups are all very much the same thing. You take a group of kids, usually segregated by boys and girls, and you teach them values and morals through allegorical initiatic means. And it's the same thing in Scouts as it is in D Malay, as it is in Job's Daughters, as it is in Royal Ambassadors, which was a Baptist scouting group that I was in as a kid. The lessons are different, and the the experiences are different. But I think the real benefit from Masonic youth groups is a chance to have your children and your wife or spouse spend time doing Masonry with you, because as Masons, the vast majority of us are a bit type A and a bit obsessive when it comes to Masonry, and sometimes our family gets left by the wayside. And the big benefit that I see to Masonic youth groups is, if your family is into that sort of thing, and there are a lot who aren't, It's a good way for your family to see how much good Masonry is doing in your life and be a part of it.
Yep. Totally agree. You also then began to allude to some of the negatives, the cons of these appendant bodies and these youth appendant bodies. So I think to your point, that there may be just not interest, right? That is something that is compartmentalized, and that's something that Dad does, right? And so there may not be a need to have its own holistic organization underneath or tied to a Mason. That there might be other activities like Girl Scouts, like Boy Scouts, like the internet, like TV, that could also take up kids' time.
Reddit.
Yeah. Yes.
Reddit.
Reddit/r/youth masonry. But the other thing I was thinking about too is that one of the downsides is that for most of them, not all of them, but for most of them, you have to have a relationship with a Mason. So thereby, you're automatically restricting membership, thereby having a smaller pool of individuals to pull from. Yeah, you could say, well, go ahead, Nick.
Oh, sorry. Well, and that's kind of the interesting thing. And okay, so I'm going to be a little bit biased. And
Here
say,
it comes.
Here it comes.
I can hear the internet exploding.
I earned this, so I got my eagle, and so I am an eagle.
Congratulations.
So, I love Boy Scouts. I know not everybody loved it, but it was like the formative thing. So everybody who's listening to this and thinking about youth groups and going there, awesome. Disregard everything I'm saying. It's okay. But the thing about Scouts, right, is that the organization is based around chartering organizations, right? So if the Lions Club wants to charter a Scout troop, a Catholic church wants to charter one, a Methodist church wants to, everybody can essentially, Masonic lodges charter Scout troops. And so you've got this huge openness within Scouts in terms of, pretty much anybody can be a Scout. You can be a Catholic and be a Scout. You can be a Muslim and be a Scout. But with the Masonic youth groups, the pool of candidates for that Masonic youth group are essentially related to Masons in some way. And the chartering organization for those are Masonic organizations. So I mean, they're already tiny. I mean, they're not going to take up like scouting, and so they're automatically going to be smaller. But it always feels like, they're always trying to grow them, and so it's always pulling on our resources as lodges, as chapters, as councils, as shrine temples. Everybody's always being asked for money, and it makes sense because, it's a very small organization compared to scouting. So.
Well, it's also it's interesting that International Order of the Rainbow for Girls, which is their official name. Thank you, Scott Sherman. They don't have a Masonic affiliation requirement. However, how are you going to find out about Rainbow?
Yeah, it's not like they advertise on TV or anything.
Yes, unless you know someone who is a Mason. So again, it's like all appendant bodies. You're starting from a very, very small applicant pool, and everybody's already stretched so thin. And at what point do you take an organization that's struggling for membership and is stretching everybody thin, and at what point do you say, okay, it's time to just let that organization go?
Yeah, well, so I alluded to earlier in the show about late chapter coming and going. Essentially, what had happened was they've been around forever, but without parental support, that's the killer for, like, at least in DMLA I know it is. If it isn't there, it fails. So in all seriousness and without question, the youth groups need like a parental involvement. My kids are in chess club, and so I pick them up every Tuesday, and they have a great time. But we have to remember, like a lot of these youth groups, this isn't chess club. You don't just drop your kids off and say, see you in an hour or two. This isn't the PTA where maybe you make a meeting and you don't make a meeting. You actually have to really be involved and look at the incredible things that the kids are doing, and know that they're not only doing these things to like learn and better themselves, but they're also doing it to show their parents and their mentors, um, impressing us with the things that they're doing. And so if it's Masonry and we're really a family organization, I think the success of those organizations, like if people say that they're just not doing well, it's really because we're not supporting them. We always just say, oh, well, this guy's involved, or that guy does it, that guy does it. It doesn't fall back to us. But if you have a kid that's in DMLA, I think you need to support it. And that's what happened to Lakes. We didn't have the parental support, so it went dark. They moved to another lodge in the district, and it's back alive. They opened the charter back up because they have that parental involvement.
Good.
Yeah, and that's so crucial. Again, but it's also something else you have to balance with your great trait. Shrine, tall cedars of Lebanon, if they're still around.
You gotta pick your flavor, like what are
exactly.
you involved in?
Mm-hmm.
It just makes it that much more difficult when people are like, petition? Right. Nick knows this.
About petitions.
Oh, man. Oh, you have a petition for me? Oh, I'd love one. But, I'm going to kind of go crazy, though, and say, and I think we're about to lose another half of all of our listeners, and I'm going to say that I don't know if I actually believe in the Masonic family anymore. I know.
So that requires a little more explanation.
Go on.
So the usual idea of this Masonic family is that you're involved, your wife is involved in OES, your kids are involved in one of the youth organizations, you're also involved in Shrine, which is also a family-oriented organization now, and I don't know, I just don't buy it anymore. I don't know, I just don't.
Shrine.
What did you say, Robert?
I said my kids don't drink, so it can't possibly be family.
Shriners for kids.
Well, and that's
trying to change their image like Las Vegas, so
I think we're reaching a new paradigm in Masonry. I'm using SAT words tonight. It's exciting. With the young people who are getting involved in Masonry now, it's not like it was back in the 1950s, in the 1960s. My spouse has no interest whatsoever in doing anything Masonic, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
Right.
That doesn't bother me one bit because, like John said, this is a compartment of my life. It is my extracurricular activities, according to my wife. And she has hers, and I don't interfere with hers, and I have mine. And, I meet so many people in Lodge who just can't abide by that. And they just don't understand, how I could be leaving my wife at home. It's like, because she would be very, very upset if I dragged her here and made her talk to you.
And uncomfortable. Let's call it for what it is. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. They served a purpose back in the time, but as we're seeing a change, these, even the anecdotal as it may be, logical fallacies, that there are cases where people are trying to get back to core Masonry and not really get involved in everything and anything, and that, again, the family doesn't have to come along with it. So I think because we have declining membership episode, that branding, we also have we have to focus. We can't do everything, and that includes with the youth group. So I kind of agree with you, Nick. We're saying that it's not sustainable. That's really the punchline here. If there was a large membership, because even I've heard of even the active groups around here, it's hey, we need call outs for chapter dads and these kind of things. And
well, look at it this way. So if you had a real Masonic family, Dad, I'm going to use my meeting nights. So Monday night is Lodge. Tuesday night is DMLA meeting, so you're bringing your kids to that. Wednesday night, maybe your wife has OES and you're home with the boys, so you stay home and you guys have pizza night. And then Thursday night, this is going on. And then on Saturdays, Sundays, you're going to church. You're doing all this stuff. People have so much to do today. I just don't know what there's so much extracurricular stuff out there.
Right. Yeah, that. Yeah, all these came out pre-internet too, so
Yeah.
we've got a lot more distractions in this age, in this technological age too. So
You
you're
know,
absolutely
like
right.
if D. Millay wanted to start a program correspondence course or something online, I mean, I'm not saying they should do that.
It's kind of
because
cool, though.
there's degrees involved, but I'm saying those are parallels that you can make. I mean, these kids are doing all sorts of things. They're playing Minecraft and uploading videos. They're not going to.
And that doesn't even, count the baseball games and the track meets too.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so much that everybody's involved in, and then they have school and homework too. Let's not forget that.
My kids are busier than I am. I mean, let's face it. Most of our kids are anyway.
Well, we know you're a big slacker.
I am huge.
Doesn't surprise us.
Like 4 days.
All right, RJ. I know you also did a little research and looked at some famous youth group members. So why don't you give us a little bit of background?
So again, we were talking a little bit earlier, and we said, how often does a D. Millay go into Masonry? And personally, I haven't found many outside of a few friends. And I thought how this might be the same, only even more so with famous people. But I guess it's not. I mean, it really turned around. I didn't know, but like Mel Blanc totally was a D. Millay. Ernest Borgnine, D. Millay. Both those guys are both Masons. Terry Bradshaw was D. Millay. Smothers brothers, Dick and Tommy Smothers, were both D. Millay. John Steinbeck, who was a D. Millay and was also a Mason. John Wayne was D. Millay and became a Mason. My favorite D. Millay, though, was Mark Calloway. I had no idea. If you don't know who he is, he's the Undertaker from WWE.
Nice.
Yes.
I looked up. It never, and just because I'm always involved in looking up famous Freemasons, I never really dove into looking up, famous Rainbow or famous Job's Daughters. But there were a few. You have just some that I found were a lady named Dottie Metcalf, and she worked. She was an astronaut for NASA. Lee Merriweather was a former Miss America, and this was pretty cool. Anna,
greatest Catwoman ever.
She was an NBC news host in Chicago, and they're Rainbow, famous Job's Daughters. I cannot confirm this, but from one website I saw, Kim Cattrall from Sex and the City and Big Trouble in Little China, best movie ever. She was also a famous Job's Daughter.
And Porky's.
And Porky's, yeah, she was the Howler.
All right.
As a side note, I actually quoted Big Trouble in Little China at my brother's wedding. No joke.
And I love you for that.
He's married, RJ.
Yeah, I also alluded to in the show notes too that Bill Clinton and Walt Disney were famous D. Millay.
Yeah. Super cool.
Yes, I was a D. Millay, and I really enjoyed every minute.
I did not go into an initiatic experience with that organization.
Man, Bill Clinton jokes.
So, what are they saying on social media, Jason?
Oh, they are saying quite a bit. Actually, our good friend Scott Sherman, who is with us for the Academic Lodge episode a couple weeks back, has had a very different experience with Masonic youth groups than we've had. He's actually heard of a number of senior D. Millays who became Masons as soon as they could. He thinks it's funny how his experience is so much different than ours. In addition to that, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to that point, in my experience, every single state master counselor basically joins the fraternity at the expense of the Grand Master. So I see that all the time.
Go on. What do you mean by that?
Well, the Grand Master will sponsor and pay for that young man to join the fraternity.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Is that a statewide thing, like every year?
No, I don't think it's statewide, but usually it's happened in now 2 or 3 years that I've been a Mason where that's been the norm.
Wow.
In fact, I think the weekend after we raised one of the DeMolays, he was also state master counselor. They also that like 2 weekends later they flew him out to Nashville to the CMAs and gave him his 32nd down there too.
Neat.
Yeah.
So, again, from Scott, the pendulum swings both ways. He mentioned that DeMolay and Rainbow in Massachusetts actually seem to be on an upswing, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, both Rainbow and DeMolay dropped the requirement for Masonic parentage. However, Job's Daughters still has it as a requirement, as best that we can tell. So we have a gentleman, Charlie Larkin, who has made several comments, just saying, he had a fantastic time in DeMolay. It's where he learned to lead, plan, execute, collaborate, and get the job done. It's where he made several of his best friends, and he tries to bring in as many young men into the organization as possible. And I think these. We're not trying to be down on these youth organizations. They do fantastic work. It's just a matter of trying to stretch yourself enough to be able to give it the support as a Mason that you need to. Our friend Richard Ingham, who we met over at Wilmington Lodge, was a member of DeMolay, and he's also an adult advisor for Rainbow Girls, which is awesome.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I was thinking about the biggest thing that I've always run into with especially, and I shouldn't say this, but Jobies, is the biggest roadblock and problem that I've ever experienced is always the parents. And actually, I shouldn't say even the parents. I should say, guardian councils or whatever they're called. So like the adult leadership, because there's like this obsession with titles, I guess. And so, yeah, see, I'm really dropping it all out there. I'm Bulworthing this thing, but seriously, it's just bizarre to me because the parents seem very or I should say the adult leadership seems very obsessed with the titles, and it just it almost seems like they could care less about the organization itself and more about I'm Bethel Guardian, or I'm this, or I'm that, and it's it just seems to really I don't know how to deal with that. It's another problem that I've experienced in especially when I was helping get as one of the lodge leaders, I was involved in the process of getting a Bethel back, and I don't know, at least with my experience, a few, I'm not going to say all of them, just a few of the state leadership. It was a headache. To be honest, it was a terrible headache. So.
Well, like I was gonna say, to your point about these titles, we think that they maybe have an issue with the titles and however, but look where we come from in an organization that has Right Worshipful District Deputy Grand Master of the 1st Northeast District of the state of Illinois. And that's a really long title. And we are obsessed with titles. We have a degree system based on titles.
If we're obsessed by titles, then they should be obsessed by titles by extension, right?
Exactly.
I learned it by watching you, all right?
So here's an interesting idea as far as youth groups go. So we've got all of these youth groups for young ladies, and specifically with Rainbow and Job's Daughters, there is a Mason involved, a male figure involved in those organizations, and we have a buddy of ours, Gerald Brown, who is saying, I'd like to know how everyone feels about mothers being involved with their sons in a boys-only youth organization. Given all of the single moms these days, he thinks it's a good idea. Do you all have any comments on that? Because I think there is a little bit of a double standard there.
Well, so like with
DeMolay moms?
DeMolay moms, sure. Anybody who's an adult can read the DeMolay ritual book. you know, if the mom is the supporter there, and she's the one showing all the support with the young gentleman, then I don't see a reason why there shouldn't be support there, and why she shouldn't be able to uh, do everything that she can, you know, to support that group, whether it's, you know, well, whatever it is.
The DeMolay moms, the new soccer moms.
There you
Well, you
go.
know, it's kind of interesting in scouting. I think they changed the rule when I was going through where the moms could be scoutmasters. I don't know when that rule was changed. I think it was way before my time. But you know, there were a lot of the older guys that couldn't stand it. They couldn't stand it at all, and I liked it. I think it kind of calmed everybody down. You know, because you've got young boys that have a lot of testosterone going on. You know, fighting for position, you know, in whatever troop hierarchy. You've also got the dads too, and you know, it was kind of good to have that female, you know, person there as well to kind of, you know, keep everything on an equilibrium. So I always thought it was okay, at least in scouts. So I'm sure it would be just fine in Himalaya.
Yeah, and I never
Are you
really
saying
saw anything
co-masonry?
wrong with it either.
Sorry, what was that one?
Did I hear you say co-masonry, Nick?
He was trying to make a funny.
I wanted to mention something. You know, brother Richard Sarth. He was a master counselor on DeMolay, and he mentioned one thing about the Job's daughters
Mm-hmm.
being the only one of those organizations we're talking about that requires a Masonic relationship. According to what he communicated to me, Rainbow and DeMolay, it was open to anybody. They didn't have to have a relationship with Mason. So
here's an interesting one for closing. Let me just double check the Twitter feeds. Okay, we're good. So, brother James Morgan, one of our friends who is Prince Hall of D.C., who actually clued us in onto the Knights of Pythagoras as we were getting ready and researching for the show. He says, I'm ambivalent about how youth groups are marketed, and I didn't personally join to work with younger men. But I think we've forgotten what Masonry is. At the same time, we do need a youth presence to continue to survive. So, what do we think? I mean, are we here to work with young people, or are we here to bring in college-aged people who are of legal age for initiation, and leave the kids to the scouts?
It's an interesting point. I mean, the way I look at it is, if I join Masonry to better myself, to do all the things that we do. Did I sign up to be a DeMolay dad? Did I sign up to be an advisor somewhere? No. However, perhaps somewhere along the line in becoming a better man, you might recognize the need to say, hey, wait a minute, instead of Monday Night Football, maybe I should just go counsel these kids or be there. Maybe you're going to say to yourself, in a course of becoming a better man, you found an outlet to help, and it just happened to be with a Masonic youth organization. And maybe the Masonic youth organization, it's a better choice than just any old youth organization. It's Masonic, so it helps sway you to do it even more. And again, they, as your past Grand Master said, I mean, I don't know if I feel the same way that they are the future of the fraternity, because so many that I know don't go on to become Masons. But I think they are a huge part of Masonry.
Mm-hmm.
And I would completely agree with that.
Yeah, that's a really good question, William. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's going to be an individual kind of thing. I like teaching, and yes, I do it with my own children, and that's fine. But whenever I go outside, let's say if I'm invited to a school to speak or something like that, I prefer older to speak to older people, not necessarily, you know, like older age students. So that's my personal preference. I see the age group of Demolay and I support it. I'm fine with it. In the near future, I don't see myself involved with it because I don't see that as my strength. However, I have some brothers who are very, very good at communicating with that age group and instilling in them the lessons that those orders have, and perhaps leaving a good impression that's going to prime them to perhaps become a member of the fraternity later on. But it's not for everybody. For sure, it isn't. Not everybody. All you got to do is look at people dealing with kids.
Let me ask this. And
That would be you four.
I'm going to make a loose analogy, and this is really for Nick. So, because he's the Eagle Scout, right? So if I don't know if anybody knows, but there are media players you can buy that you hook up to your TV. Roku, great thing, has all these channels. It allowed you to watch Netflix on TV and do all this stuff. Then Apple TV came out, and they always called theirs a hobby project, and I think that's right because maybe they're never going to catch up to something that is better established. So if I say Demolay is the Apple TV and Roku is the more established Scouts, how do you feel about that, Nick?
Does that mean that Jobies are the Chromecast?
But Chromecast is really sweet.
Yeah, Chromecast is awesome.
Yes, it is.
It's an interesting analogy. For me, it's. I think that's a good analogy because, at least when it was started very small. There were only 9 original members within Demolay, and I don't think they were ever intending it to go any further than that.
And
then it just and so it seems to be like a Masonic hobby project,
Yeah, I mean, Scouts was started by a Mason, or at least the Order of the Arrow was, right?
Actually, the American founders of the Boy Scouts, I think almost all of them were Masons. Lord Baden-Powell, who founded the Scouting movement, was not, and neither was his sister, who started a girls. She wasn't in any kind of Masonic organization. I don't think they even allow OES up there. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
But actually, interestingly enough, that you'd mentioned that is that a lot of lodges, there's these lodges called Scouter lodges. And there's a number of them in England under the English Constitution, and there's also, I think, there's a Scouter lodge in Massachusetts. It's a affinity lodge, and it's only open to Daniel Carter Beard Award recipients and also Eagle Scouts, and so it's kind of an interesting.
So it's a very small
mix. Lodge. Very small, yeah, very small.
All right. Well, it's about that time. We should start wrapping up. Let's start with Juan Sepulveda, the quiet one tonight, for the round of final thoughts and shameless plugs. Juan, how are you?
Thanks, Juan. We will go to Nick Johnson now. No, I'm kidding.
Here's something. Good. You hear me?
We can hear you.
Uh-oh.
Lost your video.
All right.
There you go.
Can you? All right. I'm trying to show.
Okay, click it back on again.
That I found with a very rare. There you go.
There we go.
You see it now?
I do.
Yes.
It has a very rare photograph of Walt Disney. It dates, I don't know if you can read it there in the fine print. It says June 26, 1934, Walt Disney, creator of Mickey Mouse film cartoons, will lead the Grand March of the 5th Annual Demolay Conclave to be held in San Diego. Disney is president of the International Demolay Alumni Association, and he is there on the left, and if I can zoom in on the picture, you can see the hat has the Demolay emblem.
That's awesome.
It looks a lot like Scottish Rite hats.
Yeah.
It looks very much like it, yeah.
Was he
when I
ever
found
a
this
Mason?
picture, there's I haven't found any evidence that he was. And
correct, he was not.
At least they're not chapeaus, as far as the the hats go.
Well, just like with anybody of importance in history, we want to believe that they were Masons. You just gotta ask my wife. She says that I think everybody who was worth anything was a Mason.
Well,
obviously.
I mean,
Hello.
interestingly
All right,
enough,
well-
John and I are part of Perfect Ashlar AMD Council, and the last meeting we had, where I was initiated, the special presentation was a research paper on Disney's life as a DMLA.
No, it's pretty good.
Which was pretty cool.
All right, Juan.
All right. Yeah. Well, it was very interesting. I'll be honest. There's a lot that I have to learn. I was never exposed to young Masonic groups. I wasn't exposed to Masonry as much growing up, to be honest. But it's very interesting. Now that I have kids and they're growing faster than I can imagine. Will they be interested in Masonic youth groups or the Scouts, as Nick is advocating? Who knows? I'll have to see. And that's it. And to say goodbye, you can find me at thewindingstairs.com. I'm going to share a new episode this week about an attitude of gratitude. So stay tuned. And also tonight I will begin selling this beautiful piece that I have back here. You can check it out at freemasonryart.com.
Nice.
What's it called, Juan?
You do the honors. What is it called?
No. You haven't selected the title yet.
No, it is selected. Go for it.
All right. That piece is awesome. It's called The Pursuit of Perfection.
Boom.
Which I think is amazing because it transitions from the rough state to the perfect state over on the left, and it's amazing. It's a great work of art, Juan.
Well, thank
You never cease to amaze, Juan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I appreciate the help too.
Mhm.
All right,
Great.
brothers.
All right, thank you. And we'll hand it off to Nick Johnson, Eagle Scout himself.
Okay, where do I start?
We shouldn't have given him the mic.
I know this is scary. Number one, I don't think they're necessary. We should just shut them down. Frankly, I've seen from my almost decade in this fraternity that really all they do is seem to drive in politics. They drive in the constant ringing of a tin cup for a little bit more money. They pull a lot of volunteer hours that could be spent other places, and I just don't see the point. Two, at least when it comes to the honors that they get, the getting honored queen or is it master counselor?
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, if you put those on a resume, I guarantee the person is going to look at it and say, "What is this? Oh, that's nice. And what teams were you on in school?" That's essentially what it's going to be. It's going to be passed over. But if you get like a gold award in Girl Scouts or you get the Eagle Scout award, those will be recognized. Those will be recognized. I still use them on my resume. I still use that. Well, just one of them. I never earned the gold, although I tried. But that's another story. But and I don't know. I just don't see the point in them. And I'm just not and three. See, I gotta stick on this whole thing. But I just don't see the point of the Masonic family anymore. It's kind of an old idea. It's starting to go away. I know there are some that are trying to keep it going, but to be honest, my wife has no interest. I really don't see myself putting my kids in DMLA. My sons, they'll obviously be in Scouts because, well, I've decided for them.
So Nick, when did you stop clubbing baby seals?
I think the more appropriate question is, when did he start?
Ooh, I can club a baby seal? How much? Anyway, but that's the thing is, I don't see the point. I know that I'm going on longer than I should, but I do. I just don't see the point. I know I've just enraged all of our viewers, and they're going to be calling for me to leave the show. So you'll see me next week.
And we thought it was bad with the America episode and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah,
Jeez.
right. We just need to bring sheep along
Anyway,
all the time.
yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, you can find my my blog that no one will read anymore now at millennialfreemason.com. And actually, the newest article is just a short little blurb that a Order of Athelstan has been formed, and a court of the Order of Athelstan has been formed in Minneapolis. I guess it's going to be meet quarterly, and no, I'm not in it. Even though,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure there's... I was
Got a
waiting for that.
petition.
You got one? Really? Hold on, I got a pen. So anyway,
Is it an
yeah,
invitational body?
it is. So yeah, it's
Oh, so you're in the clear.
Yeah, I know exactly. I can join that one, and you can also find me at reddit.com/r/Freemasonry, where you can find all the crazy stuff, and also r/whatever Scottish Rite and York Rite and
Demolay.
yeah, and D Malay.
All right.
I write on there all the time. I troll. I mean, I love them. So anyway, love the youth groups.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Jason Richards. What are your final
Anybody
thoughts?
How am I supposed to follow that? I mean, I think what Nick has said about the Masonic family is spot on. It applies in some cases today, but it is not the universal truth it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I think the sooner we get over that, the better. As soon as we can start devoting more of our time to strengthening our Blue Lodges, and I'm kind of going all Andrew Hammer right here for this short little moment, I think the better off and the stronger Masonry will be. Because I think when you have so many organizations all pawing for your time and attention as a Mason at once, it's distracting. Yeah, I'm not saying those organizations don't have their specific purposes. Some, frankly, don't. But that's not widespread. It's time to get back to the basics. And if you have a kid who wants to be in a part of a Masonic youth group, and you can devote the time to mentoring him or her and those other boys and girls in that youth group, because that's going to be your responsibility as a Mason. You can't just mentor your child. You have to take on the entire group, because that's how you live out your ideals as a Mason. Then that's great. If you have the time to do that, then fantastic. If my kids want to join a Masonic-related organization, after I say, really? Why? It's going to be fine. And I'm going to be happy for them to do that. But I'm not going to shove it down their throats. And, I'm not going to respond well to other Masons who, like they have said with my wife, well, why aren't they involved? What's wrong with them? It's like, they're not into the nerddom of Masonry as much as I am. So, again, the Masonic family, yeah, it still exists, but it's very much a case-by-case basis, and I think we need to become okay with that. I've got a blog. It's great. It's a 2-foot ruler. It's down here. I always have to move my finger around because yes, there. Thank you all so much for everything tonight as far as the social media was concerned. We had a lot of amazing feedback from everybody, and it really helped make the discussion a lot better, specifically because none of us have ever been involved in any Masonic affiliated youth organizations as kids ourselves. So what I want to ask you to do is to please subscribe, please like our Facebook page, please keep letting us know what we can do to make the show better. Let us know what topics you want to hear about. We have some amazing episodes planned through the first of the year, and it's going to be a ton of fun. And honestly, if you don't do any of those things or even buy a pin, I just want to leave you with this. The very first and only use of nuclear weapons was ordered by a Freemason. Just, think about that before you skip that pancake breakfast or decide not to donate to the Masonic Roundtable. So, love you all. You guys are great. I'll see you next week. Robert and John, you guys go and talk better than I did.
All right. Robert.
Again, what we talked about earlier, if your kids want to do, well, back up just slightly. How many of our parents told us what we had to do? I didn't ask my kids if they wanted to do chess club. I just signed them up for chess club because it fit my schedule. And it just turns out that they love it. I got lucky. If they didn't like it, I'd be out the money. But leading that into youth groups, don't push your kids into it if they're not into it. My kids are very young right now. They're 7, 5, and almost 4. And they're very much into what I do. They love all the symbols. They ask me what they mean. They play with the swords and all this crazy stuff. And they can't wait to join D-Malay. Because I told them that's the first thing you could do when you're old enough. But are they going to feel that way when they're 10 years old, 11 years old? Maybe if they don't join right away at 12, when they're a teenager, are they going to feel that way? Or is it going to be more like, I got my learner's permit, I'm going to go out joyriding with my friends? I don't know. I don't know that I don't think that the Masonic family is dead. I think my family is very much turns out to be one, not in the sense that everybody is involved in a specific area. My wife isn't in OES, my mom isn't in OES, my kids aren't in anything. It's just me. But my family is consistently at every event they can be at with me in support of the fraternity. So I think that's fun, and I'm glad they do that. The youth groups, I do like them. I just wish that they had the better support from the parents. But again, that comes from timeshare. We are very busy today. So other than that, I just want to say thanks for listening to this show. Again, use the hashtag SparkLight with your bookmarks. We had one today that was really cool. And as far as my show goes, Whence Came You comes out on Sundays at 9:30 at night. We did a fundraising for we had pins, lapel pins, tie bars, and cufflinks, and I had a really limited supply. And I just want to say thanks to everybody who bought all those up, and they're gone, and we're really well situated now. And I just want to thank everybody for the incredible support for that.
They were pretty sexy.
Yeah, right. Jason Richards and Juan Sepulveda designed them. Juan is responsible for the initial design, which became our logo for the show, and Jason put it into Illustrator and turned it into an amazing pin design. And I've got nothing but amazing compliments on them. And so thanks to you two fellows for your incredible support. Brian Evichin, who made it all happen when he got those things for us. He's the guy over at fellowcrafted.com. You get some really kick-butt Masonic pens. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you. All right, Ruark's final thoughts. Let's see. This was a nice podcast we had. I think after this one, we're going to have a lot of good feedback from our viewers. But as it was covered before, none of us really were in those youth groups, so we can't extol all the benefits as if we were one. As for me, as I alluded to earlier, I align more to the philosophical side of Masonry, and so if we are truly taking good men and making them better men, then why are we involved with the external Masonic family? We're giving a lot of time and attention to that, where truly one of the root causes or the root benefits of Masonry is self-improvement, and you can do that by extension, but I think there's a time and a place, and one thing that in an ever ever evolving, ever ADD kind of world we live in nowadays, it's more important than ever to compartmentalize, as we talked about earlier, where you have your time to reflect and your time for your self improvement, and then you also have time for your family. So I think I align with what Jason was saying with a section out of Andrew Hammer's Observing the Craft, where he does call other sides of Masonry distractions, and not in a negative context, but just that they are additional things that you have to focus on. And really, if we're talking about shorter membership, smaller membership, we have to focus. And if the focus needs to be on getting back to our roots, getting back to our core. As Juan slowly put up in his little thumbnail there, and I'll give him the chance to show it again, we are ever approaching 3,000 likes on Facebook, so you guys are awesome for that. We've only been doing this for less than a year, and we really do appreciate everything that you guys do as far as contributing to the show, commenting to the show, sharing with your friends. Look, this is really my closing statement. We're coming close to Thanksgiving. This has been a wild ride, and I do appreciate and am very thankful and grateful for everything that the panelists have done, that you have done, the listeners sharing it with your friends, people messaging us that they have been called to join the fraternity because of what we do, and just the brotherhood and friendship that we've gained and grown over the past year. So with that, thank you very much.
That sounds like we're quitting the show.
No. It's not our.
We are now.
But we may be short a few members, Nick. But no, really, it's just more heartfelt than anything. Just I don't know. It's that time of year. With that, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week because we're not quitting. And keep searching for more light. Have a good night.